Welcome to The Big Rich Show. This podcast will focus on conversations with friends and acquaintances within the four-wheel drive industry. Many of the people that I will be interviewing, you may know the name, you may know some of the history, but let's get in depth with these people and find out what truly makes them a four-wheel drive enthusiast. So now's the time to sit back, grab a cold one, and enjoy our conversation.
Whether you're crawling the red rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Why should you read 4Low Magazine? Because 4Low Magazine is about your lifestyle, the four-wheel drive adventure lifestyle that we all enjoy. Rock crawling, trail riding, event coverage, vehicle builds, and do-it-yourself tech, all in a beautifully presented package. You won't find 4Low on the newsstand rack, so subscribe today and have it delivered to you. On today's Conversations with Big Rich, we have Brad Williams. Anybody that's ever run Maxxis will know who Brad Williams is. Brad has been an integral part of the off-road community with sponsorship, Maxxis sponsoring many drivers and many organizations. And today we're going to talk to Brad about his beginnings, where he got started, how he got involved with Maxxis, and how the Maxxis programs have evolved over the years and some of the drivers that he's worked with. And we'll just get into all that kind of a history. So, Brad, I want to say thank you so much for being on board with us and spending the time today to talk with us and let the listeners know a little bit more about you and also about the Maxxis program.
Thank you. Appreciate the nice introduction.
Oh, no worries. So let's just jump in deep with both feet. And it's the question that I always ask everyone, and everyone always skips kind of, and I bring them back in. But let's talk about your early years, your influential years. You know, where did you grow up and where did you go to, say high school and that kind of stuff? So let's start early.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as far as influences, maybe a little different than some of the, your previous guests, especially ones that were involved in the motorsport side of our industry. I didn't really have, as a younger guy, have really a lot of experience in motorsports. I was more interested in, basketball, football, baseball, did those kind of things as a kid. I grew up in southern part of Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana. If you, have ever seen the Swamp People documentary, kind of, where they're hunting alligators in the bayous. I grew up, right around that area. I had a much thicker accent back then. I've lived in Georgia for 20 years and lost a little bit of it. Went to high school there, also went to college there at Louisiana Lafayette. And during that time, I'm second generation, tire industry. So from when I was a, little guy, probably 4 or 5 years old, my dad was started working in the tire industry, and that was kind of, I guess in a nutshell, my background.
So, when you say he started in the tire industry, or was in the tire industry, was that as like a tire shop, or did he work for a distributor? What was his background?
He did really all of the above. Worked for a tier 1 manufacturer as a sales rep. Ran a retail chain for a while, and then when year I graduated, he kind of went out and took the leap and borrowed some money and opened up his own tire shop. Didn't have much money back then, and after he opened it up, probably had even less money than the first few years. But if anybody's ever opened a business, probably knows, had some experience with that. And then, so I kind of grew up early years my first year of college, mounting tires at his shop, and got tired of going. I'd go, work a little while, and then, between classes, and then, head over to the college and, take a few classes there, and got tired of, going to college and trying to meet girls with, dirt and oil in my fingernails. So finally convinced him to put me on the sales counter, and, did that through most of the college, and, several years after, until I moved and started working at Maxxis.
Okay. The tire background is working in sales, and mounting is a spot where a lot of us have done it. I know my son worked for a Goodyear dealership while we were in Placerville when I first got CalRock started. I used to work for Sears Automotive as a auto center manager, but before that I mounted tires. Everybody that starts in Sears Automotive, I think, starts mounting tires and putting in batteries. And then you work your way up, and then I left the company, came back and became a salesman for them, and then jumped into assistant manager, then a manager, and all that kind of stuff. So it was my background's in tire sales truly as well. So that's it's probably why we get along so well. I got a lot of shared background there.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So let's talk about college. What kind of courses did you take at Lafayette?
Well, I graduated, got my degree in marketing, and honestly, that was just something, wanted some kind of degree in business. And you look at how, how marketing is today, back then in late 1990s, what we learned back then, and, applying it today's marketing, there's some things maybe I could use, but of course there wasn't social media and, everything we're engaged in today back then. So it's changed a bunch. We need people at our company that, younger people that have come in to really help us with our marketing efforts.
Well, I think that's true on the method of delivery, but I think the message still stays the same. Out of college, I worked in an ad agency as a commercial photographer and did all the in-house photography for the ad agency instead of hiring outside. And because my background, my degree is in commercial photography, product advertising.
Uh-huh.
I think that while the computer age and social media especially has changed the form of delivery, I still think the message is there the same. And it's just how we deliver it to the people. I know that, like, the people that are involved in our sport off-road are more hands-on than maybe the internet. They want to meet people. That's one reason we're in the sport, is to get outside and be around people that are doing the like thing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, there's still a lot of the same principles we used. It's just, it's changed a lot, of course. I wish there were, I could have taken classes back then that, I could have, applied a little bit more, especially on the, social media engagement and that kind of thing.
Right, and that stuff's changing so fast anyway.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Because just about the time you think you got ads figured out on any of the social media platforms, they change it so that they get more money out of you. And I don't know if the return is really there. But anyway, but we deal with the same thing with trying to get our events out there, and even for more people to listen to the podcast or to buy the magazine. So I get it. I get it.
Sure.
So with that being said, how did you end up at Maxxis when you got out of college and you got your marketing degree? Where did you land after that?
Well, actually, again, still working, at family business. I, at the time didn't really enjoy, the retail side of it. And, but what, what I didn't mind, I guess, is, the thought of, having my own company one day. And, I already had a head start with, my father, doing the legwork to at least have one location. I think at the time, maybe he had purchased another one. So we probably had two locations at the time. So, I had always planned, that, hey, that's going to be my future. I'm going to get involved in this business and grow it. But it was just something, I wanted to, didn't necessarily want to be under, Dad's wing the whole time, and kind of wanted to do something on my own for a little while to, get some experience, to maybe come back and, and help grow the business. So I was single at the time, and, was looking for some, places to go to maybe work for a couple years to, get those experiences. And I think at the time there were certain cities around the U.S. that seemed to be growing and had, a lot of opportunities. One of them was Atlanta. I think maybe Austin, Texas, I had on my list. Charlotte, North Carolina, just random places. But we had when I told my dad, hey, I was going to do that for a little while and wanted to do it at least for, a couple years. We had a family friend that had, or one of my parents' family friends had a daughter that lived in Atlanta and was engaged to a guy that worked for a tire company. So, they found out just through conversation that, hey, Atlanta was a place that I may want to move to. And of course, that company he worked for was Maxxis. So they asked me to send in a resume. I sent it in. They flew me down a couple times, and I guess liked me enough, and then offered me a job. So I packed up my bags and headed to Atlanta. Or, we're in Swanee, so a little bit north of Atlanta. It was supposed to be, again, a 2-year, I'd say 2 years, 3 years, get some experience, and kind of just along the way, few promotions here and there, married a Georgia girl, had kids in Georgia, and now 21 years, that 2-year plan, 21 years later, I'm still at the same company. And like the line out of the old David Allen Coe song, I'll hang around as long as they'll let me.
That's awesome. So that's pretty cool. So when you first got hired, you said, were you doing marketing, or where were you at? Like, I know some of the guys that work for you now, what level were you compared to where those guys that I know now, like Robbie or somebody?
Yeah, as entry level as you can get as a sales rep.
As a sales rep, okay.
Yeah, they gave me a small territory, very, very little pay at the time, and it was funny. As part of my pay, I had a prepaid bonus until I could start making a little bit of commission, but that bonus could be taken away anytime, and if it was taken away, I wouldn't have been able to pay bills. So it definitely motivated you to kind of get off your butt and start picking up some business to again, to pay the bills. But I remember, honestly, my first a few months at the company, just the way it was set up. They put us, I went from retail sales, and doing this was so different. Retail sales, you have someone coming in, it's a consumer that might not know a whole lot about tires, and you can sell them one thing. And you jump all the way to the manufacturer level, and you're dealing with people that know the industry. They're having to make a big commitment. And then it's, a lot of cold calling. And back then we were, positioned in little cubicles where everybody could hear every word you're saying. And there wasn't a whole lot of training or anything. And God, I remember being so nervous picking up that phone and having to, cold call. Of course, they had other guys that I became friends with that were, listening the whole time and made sure they let you know how bad you did, after. So it was pretty brutal. But honestly, my first year at the company, I really didn't like it. But I said, look, I got to stick it out. I'm not going to, go home and say, hey, this didn't work out, too early. But really didn't start, really enjoying the job until accidentally, I guess, kind of got involved in the motorsports side of things.
Okay, and I know that we discussed what your job position is now, and I want you to go ahead and tell our listeners what your position is, and then we'll backtrack and talk about how you got there.
Okay. Yeah, today I'm the National Director of Sales for our Automotive and Light Truck Department, and that includes all, everything that has to do with our replacement sales. So, marketing, which includes motorsports, and really in any tire, in that category that goes through, our replacement sales.
Okay. Now, the question I have for you is those guys that were listening on you making those cold calls and telling you everything that you were doing wrong, how many of those guys are above you in the company right now?
There's none. Most of them have moved on pretty early, but no, there's probably there's a few that are still at the company, but most of them have moved on by now.
Okay. It just tells you about, putting your head to that grindstone, and working your tail off and getting, going after the opportunities when they arise. I'm sure one of the things I told my son always as he was growing up is I said, as you come into life and you come across situations where you have a chance to interview for a promotion, whether you feel you're qualified for it or not, go in and apply yourself and apply for that position. Go through the process, because
Sure.
all it's going to do is make you stronger the next time you go in to do that. And it worked for him. Did you try to do the same thing, or was it just a slow growth to where you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people just by nature just have a little bit, more patience. I think that's kind of lost today with a lot of the younger generation. They're coming in and they're already want to know how long is it going to be before I get to this position or your position. And, as we know, life just doesn't work that way. Of course, you want things to happen. I remember, I was really, I guess, more of a late bloomer with everything in life. I graduated college a little bit later, kind of through those years, like I mentioned, moving to Atlanta, really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do at that point. But, I remember, one of my an old basketball coach, that I'd worked with told me one time, he said, life is not a sprint. You don't want to just sit in your butt and wait for things to happen, but, everything happens for people at different times. And sometimes you just have to be patient and let things, happen the way they will.
Yep. Okay. Good enough. So from that cold calling, what was the next step?
Well, again, this was still probably a point where I probably wasn't enjoying, my job as much. My boss came to me one day, my boss at the time, and said, came over to my little cubicle and he said, "Hey, Brad, what are you doing next weekend?" So I'm thinking, wow, man, this might be getting better. He probably wants, get to know me a little bit better, maybe play some golf or wants to invite me over to dinner. And I said nothing. I don't have any plans. And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what you're doing. You're going to Indiana, taking 2 Asian engineers from the factory to go see a rock crawling event." And I said, "Oh, okay." So, come to find out, we were building a tire for rock. And in fact, I think he called it rock climbing. I don't even think he had had it right. But we were building a tire that was going to be purpose built for that kind of thing. And I believe at the time we were doing something similar for events in somewhere in Indonesia. And it probably wasn't, exactly what we were doing here in the U.S., but it was big enough over there where they had, they wanted to build something, but they loved the marketing we were doing and sending back to them in the U.S. So I, took took a couple of the engineers there. I believe it was an event in Indiana, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably at the Badlands then,
the
or
Badlands. That's
the
exactly
Badlands?
what
Okay.
it was. It was the Badlands. So, I take these guys. I know nothing about it, but and of course, the engineers come with cameras and notes, and these guys are getting ready for their obstacles, and at the event, and I got these two guys taking pictures underneath their rigs at their tires, and it was a little I don't want to say embarrassing, but they were kind of a little overzealous with some of that stuff. People might not necessarily like that many cameras underneath their rigs and seeing what they're doing, but
Especially at SEMA.
Yeah. But we, of course, they didn't speak great English, so they wanted me to go talk and kind of ask these guys questions. And again, these guys are there for a reason, but some of them will talk shop a little bit. And, we kept hearing one name, over the announcer, and kept hearing about, someone say, well, this guy's, must be one of the top guys. And so I started asking him questions, and he was, very nice about it, and not necessarily giving away trade secrets with the tire company he was with, but, talking about the sport a little bit. And don't really know this guy well today, and I don't think he knows me, but that person was Jeff Mello.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And, very, very nice, just kind of, talking about the sport and that kind of thing. And there was others that helped us that event, but we got brought back some good information. And that was my first rock crawling event I went to.
That's interesting. I did interview Mello earlier for conversations, so it's one that you're going to have to go back and find and listen to, because he's a great guy, and you're right. He would be more. He's always open to discussion. Mm-hmm. Of course, he's with that other tire guys, and always has been.
Yeah, and like I said, he was. That's why I want to make that clear. Not like he was giving away any kind of trade secrets or anything, but just very nice. Talking about the sport. And the guy you're talking, that's probably almost 20 years ago now, but I remembered that event, and again, it was all new to us at that point, but I didn't know where it was going to go, but it was just, like I said, by accident. They just, it was someone that was available that my boss said, hey, go check this out.
Well, that's interesting, because then that must have led into your, they must have seen something there besides you were just available. And I don't know if that was your ability to communicate or what, because I didn't know you then, but I would imagine that's it. You're really a personable guy. But that's interesting, because you're there doing the cold call sales, and then they ask you, what are you doing next weekend? And then you go see your first rock crawling event, and now you're, in the position you are. So from that point, that first event, how did things escalate? How long did it take for them to develop a tire and then get you involved in that process?
Well, I get back from the event, and then that was pretty much the end of it. I did my thing. I don't think there was any, strategy behind sending me. I was just an available body, but, we did what we were supposed to. So again, we were developing this tire. It takes a little while to develop. And then the next year, they wanted us to, to at least get involved in an event, or, with some kind of event, so we could get our name out there. It would help us when we launch the tire, and kind of learn about the who's who at these events, and who do we need to go after, and that kind of thing. So we had, at this point, I'm a sales guy, so this is marketing handling this. And they, I believe, kind of looking at the, the different series, they chose UROC to work with. I believe it was UROC at the time.
Right.
And so our marketing guy had, called them and said, hey, we want to put a little bit of money in the series, and, just to have some banners and be able to get there, and again, start to learn a little bit more about the discipline. And the promoter at the time said, well, I mean, are you sponsoring anybody? You're a tire company. And the guy's like, well, I don't think we really have a tire. Our tire's not ready yet. And then, and that's when I kind of got involved. Our marketing guy could say, hey, is there anything we can use? And at the time, it was and it's not around anymore. It didn't stay around very long, but it was the Maxxis Mudzilla. And it was a directional pattern that looked a lot like another tire that was out there, but that was really never supposed to be our rock crawling tire. But we had it available. So again, didn't know anybody. So our the promoter said, well, let me try to find a couple drivers for you. So he found two, and we sponsored them for that year. And I think I started getting involved because they were asking technical questions, and this marketing guy was not really an industry guy. So he said, look, I'm going to handle the series side of it and the marketing side, but can you help me out with handling these drivers, because they had questions I can't answer. And I remember going to they sent me to an event again to kind of meet these guys. And I remember our guy telling us, he goes, okay, we've got two drivers out there. One of them's pretty good. The other one, I think, is he's a good guy. So so I went to the event, and not knowing much. Again, I didn't grow up around the sport or know a whole lot about it. But I found out very quickly who was the good guy and who was the good driver, and then the other guy. But there was the first guy was Chris Holly,
okay.
And he was the good driver. And again, I didn't know how good the other guy was, but I knew enough from being to that one event when you saw the rig on its hood or on the side too much that he probably wasn't as good of a driver. But I noticed that other guy, that between his obstacles, I guess the best way to describe it would be a mascot without a costume. So, he's out there, I mean, throwing T-shirts. I don't even think it was just Maxxis T-shirts. It was whatever you can get to build, get people excited about the sport. He's got them doing the wave on the rock and, yelling Maxxis. And I was like, man, that guy's passionate. And of course, that guy was Creighton King.
Yeah. I knew that. I didn't know who the other driver was at that point when you said it. And the promoter was Craig Stump.
It was Craig Stump. We
yep.
kind of, when you're looking at milestones, maybe we can get into, but Craig really helped us elevate, what we were doing in rock crawling at that time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like it. So you go to that first event as the technical guy. You get to meet Creighton and Chris Holly. And besides those two, what did you learn about the sport?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, I guess I was kind of thinking, more in terms of, how do we use this to sell tires? And one, of course, I saw like how tough the tires had to be, and they were pushing them to the extreme, as far as like airing them down and, and that kind of thing. But I think one thing I noticed, just, knowing a little bit about other motorsports, when you saw NASCAR or, IndyCar, those kind of things that, everybody's seen, is that the sport really, it seemed to be the fans, whether it's just someone driving a Jeep or have a modified, any kind of modifications on a lifted vehicle, or just does, recreational trail riding, it just seemed like they could relate to it a lot more. I noticed a lot of the fans just looking at people's, rigs, what they had under it, and that kind of thing. But I think that was probably my first impression.
Okay. Yep, the fans were actual enthusiasts and motorsports people, where like NASCAR, they may not know that, they like to watch the action, but they're not necessarily technical, going to go home and build one themselves, or,
Right.
drive something that looks like it, except maybe they'll
Sure.
throw a Dale Earnhardt sticker on or something.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. So then, as you progressed, how did it all come about? The whole Maxxis team, from 2 people to, I don't know, what was there, 7, 9, or something like that?
Well, yeah. So the next year, going into year two, and again, I'd only maybe been, one event. I would, talk to the two guys, not very often. They weren't. It was kind of low maintenance because it was a 2-person team, and they knew what they were doing. They would call me to, order tires for them or whatever. So now let's keep in mind this whole time, no one's really, officially given me any kind of job in motorsports. So I always called it a hobby. And to this day, I don't think I've been paid one penny for it. I was always, again, sales background. But so, again, going back to, when we were, going back and the next, contract with the series, we, they just, again, this is the marketing guy who's, at as low as level as I am, making these decisions. Well, why don't you, take this and help me? Because again, I think it'd be better for you to deal with the drivers. So now we have our rock crawling tire out, which was the creepy crawler, which is, still around today.
Right.
And, but, so now, and really the factory, all they were interested in is doing something to send us marketing assets. So, they were fine with 2 teams, or, as long as we can take some good video and pictures and that kind of thing. But, I kind of enjoyed it, and everybody likes to build things. So, let's see what we can do and, make this thing better. So, of course, the promoter, Craig Stump, I think during that time and I don't remember what his involvement was at UROC. I don't know if he was part owner or, had something involved, but, he had left and was going to start competing. So, again, at this point, I didn't really know Craig because, our marketing guy had dealt with him. And I remember, I'm thinking, I don't know anybody. We got a 2-person team, and, that may be fine because it's going to be tough for me to recruit. I just, I don't know enough people, and, we have a new tire out that's unproven. So I get, again, that same marketing guy says, "Hey, Brad, I got someone that wants to talk to you, set up a phone call with you." And he's the godfather of rock crawling. So I said, "What?"
I love how he gives
I don't know.
himself
And
that
to this
title.
day, I don't know if he gave himself that name or someone else did. But here I am, a guy still doesn't know much about the sport, and I'm trying to build the thing. And I got the Godfather that wants to talk to me. I said, I'm thinking to myself, I better carve out some time to talk to the Godfather. So I did, and it ended up being a pretty productive phone call because I think what he was doing at the time is he was putting together a big team, and kind of the whole deal was he wanted them all to be on the same tire, same wheel, and he was going to get all these sponsorships for them. And to his credit, he did. And I think it was actually, it might have been a 10-person team. So I believe Chris and Creighton, were still part of that. And then we had, 8 more drivers, and it was, it was a mixture of kind of your, maybe, I don't want to say lower tier because they were all people that got attention, but we call them underdogs and up and comers. And then there was some mixed in there that, were good drivers that could win. But our big issue at the time is, again, when they were building this creepy crawler, they were doing it, putting it on vehicles overseas in these events. And we had a big issue. We didn't have, it didn't come in a 17-inch wheel size. So all of these, as Craig's recruiting, of course, all these guys are running 17-inch bead locks. So he had to first do a lot of convincing, but, find them a wheel sponsor so we could get everything over, to run our tire. So I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost positive it was Greg Mulkey at Allied that helped us out.
Right.
And either built some, 16-inch bead locks or had some. And so, we put everything together. I think, again, next milestone during that year, when we were talking to Craig, he goes, hey, we need to be able to compete. Of course, we're going to need a 17-inch tire at some point, but, that may take a little while, but we need, a softer compound. So I remember going to the engineers and talking to some of our ATV guys about it. They told me, Brad, you're going to embarrass yourself. Don't go ask for that. We've, on the ATV, UTV, it's a, mature program. We've been in racing forever, and we've been asking for a soft compound, and they won't build it for us. He said, they have them available, but they're not going to, it's just expensive. You got a lot of waste coming out of the molds and a lot of scrap and that kind of thing. But somehow we got our engineer, who's still our, senior VP of engineering that runs our tech center here. He got it done for us. And so we came out, our first sticky tire was in that 16-inch creepy crawler.
Wow.
And so anyway, we were, again, going from, I didn't really do much, but kind of looked like a hero now. We went from 2 teams to 10 teams. We got a sticky tire. Funny story about that. I remember, of course, I think we started, maybe we had like a, I don't know, $5,000 budget or think year one, and we were going in with about the same budget. So we had to put our sales, caps on to figure out how we were going to pay for this, 10-person team, and got that done, but had nothing left over. And I remember Craig telling me, hey, we all kind of want to look the same. So, we need some money to get some uniforms. And I was like, man, I don't have anything, but let me see what we might have available. And so we have this area at the Maxxis warehouse that we call the cage. And it's just where they kind of have leftover jerseys of teams and that kind of thing. So I open a box and find these downhill bicycle jerseys. So like they're these long sleeve kind of mesh jerseys that were just, orange. So kind of thing where, if you're riding a bike in the fog or whatever, these are the kind of jerseys you want. So we now these things were fitted a little bit different. So anyway, we said, hey, we have these things. We're going to give these to the guys. We have enough of them. We're counting them out. And there was a lot of, I think, complaints within the team because, it didn't look, didn't look like something a rock crawler would be wearing. And, to this day, we still call, when we're doing sponsorships, we call them our sponsorship athletes. And, problem with some of these rock crawlers, they didn't necessarily have the athlete physique. So so they were good sports and squeezed themselves in them. And I remember going to that first event. We didn't have a whole lot of money to give the series, and we show up there, with our new team, and I go to this event. And, of course, you had one of the tire manufacturers, a title sponsor, and spent big money on it. Another one of our competitors was winning everything. But, we had, these 10 spotters, 10 drivers, and other, I think family members we gave it out that had these orange jerseys on. And then we also, in that cage, again, because we didn't have much budget, we had this box that we would, it was always like there was a lot of stuff stored back there that, they had, I think at the time, like a bunch of T-shirts that hundreds of them that they printed, and the logo was kind of crooked. And, they would put that kind of stuff back there that we couldn't sell on our e-store. And, some of them, I think you take them out and it had a forklift track on it or something that, somebody ran over. So we take those jerseys, we take all those T-shirts, And, again, all the money that the title sponsor spent and the other company winning everything. But then when you looked at it at the end of the day, we were there with just our little 10 by 10 tent, and all you saw was just orange, everywhere. And of course you got Creighton cheerleading and throwing out, 50 t-shirts and, giving out swag everywhere. And I'd listened to Creighton's podcast, but that was the same event, I believe, where he had mentioned that one of the, guys on the podium got up there and said, I know there's a lot of wannabe tire companies out there running around in orange or something like that. But we definitely, we didn't win anything that day, but we definitely got noticed.
That's marketing. That's, if there's one of the guys that I always looked up to as a competitor and had some really good ideas, came over from a different sport and had Red Bull with him, was Dustin Webster. He was really good at marketing and understanding what needed to be done and stuff. And what he said is, if I can't win the show, I'm going to be the show.
Yes.
And, the guys that you picked for your team, there was a couple of them that Craig picked for the team that were good. There was one or two that in their class were probably considered great. And then you guys, you did the thing you needed to do, and that was to make an impression marketing. Even if it was cleaning out the cage.
Yeah, very good point. And we saw it the same way. We knew we weren't going to get, all the best drivers right away. And like I said, that was it was kind of mixed. It was your up and comers, but we always liked the people that could, put on a show and get us attention.
Right. One of the other of those two tire manufacturers that you're talking about, when they came into the sport, they just gave everybody free tires. And they just said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to give everybody the opportunity to run our tire. And then what they did is they started pulling the free tires back and only giving them to the guys that were the top players. So as they would win on those tires, everybody thought, oh man, I got to be on those tires too. I can't get them for free anymore, but I got to buy them. Yeah. And they came in with a completely different marketing attitude. But one of the things that you guys have done as Maxxis is that it's that grassroots program that you have where you get the kids started on Maxxis really young with the bicycle programs.
Yes, we and that's just a company culture thing. We got the Lowe family in the 60s, in Taiwan. I mean, that's how the company started, is building bicycle tubes, and got into bicycle and moto, and it was all the two-wheel stuff, which is all enthusiast related. And then of course over time, built it into a ninth biggest manufacturer in the world. And our volume all today, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's probably, upper 80 percentile is all comes from light truck and passenger. But all of the marketing and getting, engaging an enthusiast, still to this day, there's some people, that's what they remember us as, is, the moto company or the ATV, UTV company, the bicycle company. But, we were on one of our, partners we deal with that has, a big online company, tire company, really put everything in perspective one day when we were talking to them, I think earlier last year. They market, you don't realize how many tire brands are out there, but they were marketing at the time on their site 350 brands.
Wow.
So now a lot of those are, made by the same manufacturer that might be private label, but when we were going through the pandemic and, of course, everybody wants to cut marketing and motorsports were in jeopardy because, again, we didn't know if they were going to have those events, and, OEMs were shutting down, and, we weren't able to ship them. And I mean, we really fought for it. And I think, it's like, look, this is our identity. When you're talking about those 350 brands out there, we have to have an identity. We're not a big OE supplier on our light truck and passenger tires. We're that we're that, able to engage with a very, someone at a very young age that goes, into bicycle and maybe moves up to, or even, our trailer tires are well known in the market, to
Yep.
haul, your toy haulers and things like that around. But, we've always marketed that, at some point, younger generations are going to say, hey, that other brand that's popular and spends the, hundreds of millions on marketing, that's my dad's brand. That's my grandfather's brand. We want them to say that, hey, Maxxis is the youthful brand. It's my brand. So we've always fought hard to keep our motorsports active.
That's good. I had a marketing guru from another company, not tire manufacturer, but he's jumped around in the industry quite a bit over the last couple of years. But he's been real influential in any place that he's been. And when we were talking to him about the brand he was representing at the time, he goes, "Well, you guys have always done a really good job going to the companies that are grassroots." And I said, "Well, that's because we are, our sport is grassroots. It's not NASCAR. It's not, the really high dollar trophy truck guys. It's, rock crawling and rock crawling enthusiasts are typically middle class. Maybe upper middle class, but still middle class. We have some guys that dabble in it that are extremely wealthy, business owners, that kind of thing. But we're still a grassroots sport." And he goes, "That's what I'm talking about. Maxxis." He goes, "Your guys' relationship with Maxxis. If you look at Maxxis, that they start everybody young. They get that kid, buying Maxxis on his bicycle, and then he goes to his ATV or his motorcycle, and then all of a sudden he's racing, in the desert. He's going to go with the tire brands that he knows, unless somebody comes in and buys him."
Right.
And that's what we've seen over the years. And you've done a really good, Maxxis has done a really good job at keeping those people, because you guys have a very high quality tire product across the board. And, the people that have used them know that. Of course, there's some people that will always swear by the tire brand that they've always used as well. That's just how tires are.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys have done a good job, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. We always, one thing that's just the way Maxxis is structured, we have 3 separate sales division. There's bicycle, UTV, ATV, and of course the passenger light truck side. And one thing I think in the past we could have done a better job is, everybody, kind of having their strategies cross over and be on the same page, because they always had separate budgets and kind of wanted to do their own thing. And we're starting to see that change, as I have a little bit more control over it. And just of course there's a lot of crossover now, whether
Right.
we're doing desert racing, short course, some of the the rock racing you've done in the past and that kind of thing. There's obviously a lot of UTV classes involved, so we still need to do a better job of it, but that's something that's been a focus the last couple years.
Yeah, and that is, I think, very important, is to get all those 3 different groups all working together for the end. All having the same vision at the end.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So let's go back and talk about those rock crawling days and the team, 10 teams, and of course you got the cheerleader,
Yeah.
Creighton, and
Yes.
let's talk about that transition for light truck and tire on the motorsport side, on getting involved with the event series and how that all played out. I know that you guys, you're still a salesman at that point. So how did the transition come about, and how long did that maybe take?
Yeah. Again, still salesperson. Nobody told me I was supposed to be spending my time doing this. That's why the whole thing, I've called it a hobby. but now it got fun. You're meeting some good people, and you're seeing things build up. We'd get out to events, and people would know you a little bit. It was the fun part of the job. So I guess somewhere along the line, some of the upper management realized I was having too much fun, and they didn't need to pay me for it. But the sales side, everything was still good. So yeah, somewhere along the line, I think again, we were still going to events, and our support was a 10 by 10 tent. You probably remember us from those days with a couple display tires out there. So at some point, as we grew and wanted to get in the other types of racing, we knew we needed the right support at races. Now, of course, again, putting on our sales cap, that's a tough sell when you go, again, from just a few years ago having a $5,000 budget. Now you're talking about getting support rigs involved. So we we had Jay Goebel and Mike Farmer, who had support rigs, the ATV, UTV, moto, power sports side of the business. That was already mature in sponsorship, and they actually had an East Coast truck, a West Coast truck. And I remember being around those guys, and just, man, they everything was just kept. Their trucks were is pristine, always clean. They always brought a professional appearance there. And but the other thing I noticed about them was just because really Maxxis was the only company they were contracted to. They just lived and died Maxxis. I mean, they were just passionate. We always remember Mike Farmer saying he just I bleed orange. So
yep.
We knew we needed that that support truck. So I think the natural thing to do would have been to talk to those guys. But I think there might have been some hesitancy. They really wanted the gig, but and expand. But I think the manager at that time, said, hey, that might be a little too much. So it's like, well, man, we could just contract out to another company, but we really want that kind of support person in there that just lives and breathes Maxxis. So we got to find that guy and put a proposal together. And again, it went back to seeing that we can call him a cheerleader, brand ambassador, whatever you want to call it. I don't think there was another person out there that had as much passion as like a Creighton King. So, crazy idea. It's like, hey, let's let's see if we can work this out. And I think he was an accountant at the time, and it took a little while to put together, but finally made it happen. And then when we got the support rig, it allowed us to to go out and look at other motorsports. But really how some of the sponsorship stuff happened is, once we were out there and, people saw us giving sponsors, we first started out, there was no one come and talk to us at SEMA. Nobody wanted to run our tires. They didn't even know what Maxxis was at that point, or at least they didn't know that we had light truck tires. But, now that people saw that, then we go see them, and there's desert racing teams coming. There was, short course teams coming. But we, I think outside of rock crawling, the first team we signed was a desert team, desert racing team. I think it was a Class 7. And they had, or I guess were partnered or knew someone that was in short course racing. And that was that's kind of how we got into that. And that guy was Randy Eller. He was a pro light driver, and that's how we kind of got introduced into all those other things. And again, I think it was just a matter of people. We had Creighton, helping us recruit, of course. Very involved in that, and was a big part of what we did. We had other Maxxis drivers that, again, were just buying into the culture and introducing us to their friends, and it just kind of blew up. As I'm telling the stories, I kind of realized after how much, little I personally had to do with it. It was just people around us were, making it happen.
That's awesome. How did Pistol Pete get involved with Maxxis?
Oh, man.
Did you have much relationship with Pete?
No, I didn't. And, God, I don't remember how we first met, but, Pete was always kind of that guy. He was like of course, meeting him after and getting to know him, he was kind of that real man's trophy truck guy. He, of course, you're running Trophy Cup. It's usually these guys, have, enough money to do anything they want. And, Pete was on a budget, but he'd always put something together that on any given Baja, he could, or any big race, he could win.
He had the potential, yes.
Yeah. And it goes back to, again, what you were saying, the person, type of driver that was going to get, we weren't at that point going to, sign like a, I don't know, a Hertz team or something like that. But he just seemed to be the right, the right fit. He was going to get us attention. I know he would, post stuff on the off-road boards, good or bad, it was going to get attention. But again, he really bought into the, the Maxxis culture, and, we became friends over the years. We got to remember him coming. We had an event at SEMA, and it was supposed to be, for our customers, but we invited, all the off-road, our sponsorship, and magazines and that kind of thing. And it probably was a ratio of like 90-10 where it was all sponsorship, and our president kind of put an end to that, But I remember Pete being there and him just coming in with the mullet and the sunglasses, and he had like the silk black shirt. I mean, it was a presence there. I mean, he looked like the rock star, and I think made himself believe he was. In a lot of cases, he was. But it's God, I remember I hadn't talked to Creighton just in a while. We're both kind of doing our own things, and I gotta remember where I was. I was down in my basement doing something, and he called, and I didn't answer right away. Then he texted and told me about the news, and it's just, God, you kind of remember where you were, and it just really hits you. And he, before that, he had finally got, he was going to be, he was a TV personality, and he had, they were filming somewhere in Georgia maybe like a year earlier, and he made sure, he said, hey, I got some time off, and he drove, I don't know, a few hours just to come have lunch with us and tell us about it. But yeah, we miss him. He was a big part of kind of longtime Maxxis guy. And it's weird you mention it, because just yesterday, his and it was forwarded to me from Creighton, but his younger daughter is going to be competing in a desert event, and she's had asked us if we wanted to support her. So just kind of a coincidence, but of course we're going to do whatever we can to make sure the Soarin' legacy lives on.
That's awesome. Pete was a special guy, that's for sure. You talk about him walking into that meeting with the black silk and shirt and the sunglasses and the mullet and everything. He had a presence, whether you loved him or hated him, and it depended on if you were competing against him, especially. Some of the guys just, he just told it like he felt it was. And he never would hesitate to tell you his opinion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's, going through contract season with him, of course he knew how to, get more money and ask, but it was, we just developed a relationship over the years. It was just, you kind of knew what you were going to get, but, again, it was just, you don't realize how much you're going to miss somebody and, until they're gone. But, I remember a story with Pete, because he's always, again, he didn't have the money of some of these, other trophy truck type teams. So we had to get any kind of sponsors he would get. And then we saw something, we're a tire company, and, we're advertising, tough tires and that kind of thing. And he signs a deal with Slime, which is, prevents tire punctures and that kind of thing. And I remember someone showed me the picture, and it had, one side had Maxxis and the other side had Slime. The sponsor. I remember seeing him at an event and, talking to him, hey, Brad, how you doing, whatever. And as I'm leaving, I pull out another, 32-inch sticker or whatever. It's like, hey, we got more of these if you need one for the other side, Pete. And he just, didn't know what to say, didn't really say anything, just kind of chuckled and shook his head. And I think the next event, of course, it had 2 Maxxis stickers on there. But yeah, he was, I mean, that's a lot of personality, for sure. Yeah. Pete had a tendency sometimes to do things and just apologize later. But again, a lot of times we knew what we were getting, and we just there was definitely more good than bad, because he definitely, like we talked about Creighton, we definitely, he got us a lot of attention.
Yeah, true. Let's continue talking about the development of the Maxxis brand in rock crawling and rock sports. Right now, you have arguably the best rock crawler in the nation that's competing nowadays on your tire brand. And of course, that'd be Jesse Haynes.
Yep.
Of course, there's some guys out there that think they're better. There's probably one guy that's on another tire brand, but he's retired, that I would consider the all-time greatest rock crawler.
Yeah.
And that's Tracy Jordan. But
you can always say Tracy Jordan, of course.
And he, of course, he was on that other brand. But they, Jesse would hang with him. I mean, always did. So I think it's a good comparison. But getting Jesse on the team, I don't know when that happened. I don't think it was there at the beginning with the first 10, but somewhere along the line, because he was probably possibly even at that event at the Badlands, because he worked at the Badlands back then.
Yeah.
So how did things come about with Jesse? Do you remember?
God, I mean, I think Jesse was East Coast back then, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we were again, we had our our West Coast guys, and then we we're trying to build a team to for the East Coast. We call it East Coast, but it was people realizing that we were out there providing sponsorship. So you had a couple teams that nobody else was looking at and couldn't get a sponsor, so our tire sponsor. So they would come to us, and with that, there was always someone that said, well, you could sponsor us, but we also, have this guy that, he's good. He's the guy. And at that point, I think I think one of those guys, one of the first ones out east, when you said Jesse went in the very beginning, I believe was Danny Rohr.
Yes.
If you remember, Wombat, and he was real hesitant to come on our tire. Well, because we didn't have the 17-inch, and then now we had this new tire coming out, the Trepador, and God, I remember, he was still kind of hesitant, but said, "Hey, we have these tires coming. We want you to test them. We're going to air freight them, into the U.S. because I think Craig's team, they already had their wheels and were doing their thing." And I remember, that was the part how we kind of broke into, the guys or started meeting some of the guys on the East Coast. But, funny story there. I remember, we were late in getting the tires into our office, and, we're promising this guy that, these things are coming. So we had them air freighted, and then it was an event in Jellicoe. And so we had to get them to the hotel. Just ship them directly to the hotel. And if you remember, kind of the hotels in Jellicoe. So, I remember calling the guy saying, "Hey, these tires are coming, can you, put them somewhere?" And that, "Oh, yeah, whatever." So again, I'd never been to Jellicoe, but, show up at the hotel, and I'm like, "Oh crap, where the," so, we went and met the little guy at the front and said, "Hey, we got some tires." "Oh yeah, these things are getting all kind of attention." Keep in mind, there's 8 of these things in the world. These were hand cut tires that we shipped for testing. I walk around the back, and you got 8 of these things just piled up in some weeds in back of their thing. And he goes, "Yeah, these things getting a lot of attention. Everybody's taking pictures of them, and this is a new rock crawling tire, no one saw." But shortly after, and I think, Rich, again, it's been a while, and some of the stuff's blending together, but I remember meeting Jesse and getting him on. But I think back then everything was we built was for for modified guys. I don't know if we had and I think Jesse might have been super mod at the time. Would that be right? Or
yeah, there was the, at least with our calling it, you had like Legends cars, which was
Yeah.
our pro modified, and I think
Okay.
Danny and I think Jesse might have been in that class at that point. And then you had the Unlimited or Super Mod,
Right.
which was like what Marty Hart ran
Sure.
in,
Yep. Yep.
and then Jesse
Yep.
eventually in there because in 2006, I want to say, or 2006, 2007, Jesse won our national championship in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
I think at that point he was on Maxxis.
Yeah, and that's what I think. Jesse might have been one of our first, at least I know out east, our first, unlimited or super mod guy.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, but of course that's 15 years ago, and he's still with us and doing some good things. I think that's probably one of my biggest regret is I've as my roles expanded, I just don't get to engage with those guys as much anymore, and I miss that. But Jesse's certainly one of them. I think we're looking at some new possible products coming in the future that we're in development on, and I think we've already been in touch with him. He'll be a big part in helping us develop.
That's awesome. Cool. So you pick up Danny Rohr, you get him these new tires. Danny always has he had an alter ego that
The Wombat.
well, not even Wombat. It was called instead of Danny Rohr, it was Randy Dorr. And Randy Dorr is the guy that would come out typically on a Friday or Saturday night, was known to have a great time.
Yeah, hit the moonshine or whatever else was around. Yeah.
Yeah, and but he was always, if he wasn't on the podium, he was challenging for the podium up to the last obstacle.
Yeah.
We miss him at the events. He was quite the character, but he's raising a family now, so.
Yeah, I thought around that time they either had, children or maybe even adopted. I don't remember, but I remember seeing, back then very little ones, at the event at that time.
Yep. So let's go ahead and talk about the other forms of motorsports. I know that you talked about Randy Eller, and the short course stuff, and we talked about Pistol Pete, and we've talked about the rock crawling. Is there other, I know that you guys got into drift and some other stuff. Was that all part of your program as well?
No, that actually, the drift side of things, when we started, signing a bunch of, short course guys, east and west, and, running, I think at the time, the old MDR program and, in the desert, had a lot of, big grassroots programs. So it was starting to be a full-time job. And so whenever, again, just a hobby at this point.
Right.
And then when we, they developed the tire for, it was easy to get done because, at that time, the whole like tuner scene was huge. And, our factory overseas, that was drift was something, it was popular in Asia. So, they got, we had already set the ground, so they got butts pretty early, but I think I passed. I don't know if I was, at a management position at that point, but we ended up, there was a guy that had came much later and kind of saw some of the things, we were doing and wanted a piece of it. Again, he was a sales guy and kind of took the drift program by the reins and did, a very good job. At one point, our last year in it, we had Chris Forsberg won the championship, and I think Ryan Turk maybe was runner-up. So, two guys on Maxxis finishing 1 and 2, and Formula D was, I think, just one class. So, very, very well. Then it got to the point where it got expensive, and trying to use that to market, those type of tires, which you at that time you had to get down to a price point anyway. It just
Right.
stopped making sense. But yeah, I had some success on the pavement as well.
Excellent. So what's the future like? I know that you can't give away secrets. I know that, but you said there's something that some products coming up that you're gonna like get Jesse's input on and stuff. So what can you talk about some of that at all?
Yeah, I mean, people that have been around our program and know about our products. There's of course certain disciplines where we're used to having. We thought we had certainly one of the best, if not the best, tire that we built. Purpose built tire for short course. We can't use them anymore, but really never got there on the desert side as far as the trophy truck or trick truck classes, and then of course the Ultra 4 type racing. We won a series championship. That's probably going back, got at least probably 4 years. With Levi Shirley.
Right.
Came close. I think there's a GPS problem with winning KOH one year, but we know areas where we probably we need to improve, and if you take too long, you start losing people in those disciplines, and we have to be as motivated as we were in the beginning to keep progressing, and that's something we've talked about, and I think have the factory on board. So we could have as many as a couple new we'll call them purpose built or project type tires for multiple disciplines. But yeah, we're actually in development now.
Excellent. So one of the areas that, and I don't know, this is something that we can continue to talk about, or I'll take it out depending on where you want to go with it, is some of the other tire manufacturers out there do a lot of social type events. And I know that at one point you guys were talking about getting involved with some people on the East Coast that we're going to do some stuff. Are you guys still looking at doing some things like that to get the enthusiast more involved than just racers?
When you're talking social type events, I'm not sure I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like the runs that a trip to Alaska, or
I got you.
A kind of
okay.
like an ultimate adventure type things that.
Yeah, I mean we're looking at at all those things, and that's where we have to, as our brand is starting to be noticed as more of as we we put brands in tiers, as an upper tier product, especially on the off-road side. We've had to become more modern, and we talk. In fact, we had something big that we were planning like that to get customers involved in magazines and enthusiasts and that kind of thing. But it was going to be the launch of our new Razor AT, and we we had other events planned as well. Kind of starting to going to start planning those type of things, but then. Of course, news of pandemic hit, and
right.
We had to put all of that on the back burner. But we have a program manager now that kind of oversees a lot of the marketing, and a lot of those events are generated from customers on our programs that can purchase enough and win trips and that kind of thing. But we always thought we would have the ability to be able to involve a lot of our sponsorship and teams and influencers and those kind of activities.
Okay, perfect. So is there anything in the tire world or the Brad world that you would like to talk about that we haven't discussed?
Well, guy, currently, of course, it's, you've probably heard this, it's been a strange year. Of course, the pandemic's changed a lot of things, but we, at least on our side of the industry, we've, almost forgot about that early on because, our industry was faced with some challenges with, tariffs, new tariffs being announced, and then, the supply chain issues that that the pandemic's caused, where, it's very hard getting product today, from Asia or a lot of countries into the U.S. And, of course, port congestion and,
Yeah.
all those things we're dealing with right now. But it's been challenging, but we're getting through it. It's I think consumers are going to see in the industry there's probably going to be a little bit of sticker shock on tires. Prices are increasing pretty quickly. There's certainly a shortage, which affects what we can do on the sponsorship end and everything else. But it's a problem that everyone's dealing with. So it'll probably be goofy for a little while longer. But I think when the dust settles, we'll all be in good shape.
Well, great. So let's go into something. Is there a question that you would like to know about from me? Do you have, or an answer? Do you have a question about what I do or what we've done or what we're doing that you would like to ask, that maybe the listeners might have the same question?
Oh, wow, man.
Threw you for a loop, didn't I?
Yeah, man. Making me the interviewer. Well, of course, doing what you guys do, I think I probably told you, admired that. And, a Shelley kind of coming in from a different background, it's obvious. I know you've gone around and living in motorhomes at times, and, you see it. There's obviously just, I think everyone notices and appreciates the passion, but, and this was probably discussed before, but, I don't know how did you, turn your, I think you said you were a photographer or, took marketing classes, kind of on that end. How did that turn into do what you did today, and what kind of experiences, allowed you to be able to run a successful series? Because being around racing a lot, that there's, everybody has seen these series, and, where these promoters either, have unfortunate, things that happen, but, a lot of them don't make it. And We Rock, I think you're back in the old Cal Rocks days, and now We Rock has been around a long time. So what's your secret?
Well, 20 plus years now. It's 20 years of, this season will be our 20th year of seasonal events. So, more than one. And then we did one the first year. So we're 21 years into this. And I would say what it is, longevity is the passion for the sport and for the people that are involved in the sport. And that goes also from not just the drivers, but our marketing partners, the media, our property partners. That's, you got to be a person that likes people. I don't know if I always liked people. I think I like people more now than when I was in corporate America working for somebody else, especially on the retail side. I hated retail. Working at Sears, working other companies, I just hated people. I didn't like myself either. And so I think that was a big change in me. It was ended up liking myself, and then trying to find something that I really wanted to do. I spent my years from the time I was, say, 16 to 18, all the way up to 42 when I started, that's the age I was when I started Cal Rocks, was spent trying to find out what I wanted to do when I grew up. I had a whole bunch of different jobs. I had a whole bunch of different careers. I owned different businesses and different, I was a contractor. I had a firewood cutting business. I mean, I did a lot of different things. A photographer, had my own studio, all sorts of things. And I never stuck with anything more than 5 years. It didn't matter what it was. At that 5 year period, if I was still there, I'd look at myself in the mirror and go, all right, I'm bored, move on. And I would just walk into companies, throw my keys on the desk and say, I'm out of here. And people would look at me like, are you crazy? You're making this amount of money. Why are you quitting? Well, because it's not about the money. It's about how I feel and what I want to do. And I think that when I found the sport of rock crawling, I loved wheeling, and I loved going out in the outdoors and just doing something like that. And it probably could have led into anything. If I'd have gotten into motorcycles earlier, I probably would have gone that way, but it was four-wheel drive that I got into at first. So that's where the passion went. And then going to those first early events with ARCA and what ended up becoming Pro Rock, and then Craig Stump getting started the same time I did with U-Rock and me with Cal Rocks. Because I knew Craig before all that, because he was the club president in Delta, Utah, four-wheel drive club president, and I had become the four-wheel drive club president in Cedar City. But it was, that when I finally moved back to California, I said, okay, I'm going to start doing this because nobody's doing it out there. So that's what I did. And I've always been good enough listener to people to figure out what people wanted to do. And so listening to the drivers at the early events and looking at how the events were run, and maybe not communicating with the drivers, that I looked at it and said, okay, I'm going to find out how to put on the best competition and then worry about the event secondary. Because if I look at the drivers as our product. And so if the product is happy, we're going to get the drivers. And so that's always been kind of my basic formula, you might say. And then, of course, when I met Shelley and she came in and brought some organization, the accounting side, because I had no control over accounting. I did it, but I had no control over it. I had no clue what I was doing. So when it came to numbers and all that kind of stuff. And so she came in, got involved with that part of the business. And as a team, we've been able to continue doing this since 2009 together. And, 2009, you didn't know this, but was going to be my last year. I was going to quit, and I was going to call all my marketing partners and say, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going to go find something else to do. And, she convinced me to keep doing it. So, 12 years later, we're starting our, 2021 and still loving it. So, that's the roundabout way of getting there.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So I want to say thank you, Brad, for coming on and spending some time with us today. It's been, wow, look at that, an hour and 30 minutes. And
oh, wow.
We'll, I know time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, I when I was getting on, I was telling my wife where I was going. I said, Carrie, they're gonna, I got to stay on, I think, for like an hour. What am I gonna, talk about for an hour? And she just kind of looked at me. She said, I don't think you're gonna have a problem.
No, no, it's
yeah, she knows me too well.
And I want to say thank you for always being part of We Rock for as long as you have been, and always being that guy that'll pick up the phone. There's, I know that you're really busy and you have a lot of irons in the fire at Maxxis, but you always pick up the phone, you always call me back, you always answer my emails, and that's not always the case in our industry, but thank you for being that guy.
No problem. We appreciate the friendship and the partnership and everything that goes along with that.
Excellent. So, again, thank you so much. And I will be in touch with you and let you know when this is going to air.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. And thank you, Brad.
See you, bud.
Okay. Bye-bye.
If you enjoy these podcasts, please give us a rating. Share some feedback with us via Facebook or Instagram, and share our link among your friends who might be like-minded. Well, that brings this episode to an end. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next week with Conversations with Big Rich. Thank you very much.